Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is Jay. Today we're going to be analyzing Canelo Golovkin 1. As you know, it's basically fight week. It's happening. The third fight is happening this weekend. And I thought it would be a good opportunity just kind of to look at the fight and see what happens. I went and looked at the fight. The first one, Canelo was definitely throwing a lot of combinations in the beginning, using the jab as a range finder. He had a lot of movement, definitely a lot of movements, which I think he was giving Golovkin some trouble. And he was being more effective early on in the fight. As you know, Canelo, he tends to start really strong. And then normally as the fight goes on, he has problems keeping his stamina, problems keeping his movement. It's been an ongoing trend in his later fights later on. But the first fight, he was actually doing really well. I was quite surprised. He had been a while since I reviewed these fights, so I was quite surprised to see him doing so well. He looked heavy. Obviously, he's always been very muscular. One thing I noticed early on in the fight, Golovkin was holding back on his punches. He really was, which I was really surprised. I don't know if he was a little impressed and shocked with the way Canelo came on the first rounds, the early rounds of the fight, but that's just my impression. As I mentioned earlier, um, early in the fight, Canelo was really going to the body, which is something that I really like. I enjoyed seeing Canelo going to the body. I enjoy all the fighters going to the body. You know, I don't understand why a lot of fighters sometimes forget going to the body, but if you're looking into the later rounds, normally they become really effective. He was throwing really good combinations. He was going up and down to the body using the uppercut. So I was really surprised with that. He was using better head movement too to avoid some of Golovkin's punches. So I was very surprised, and I really enjoy, uh, the earlier in the fight. Uh, as I said, mentioned before, early in the fight, GG was unable to put on combinations together. He wasn't really letting his hands go, which I was quite surprised. He appeared to hold back on his punches. I mentioned this a while ago. I don't know why. It's like he just couldn't let them go. He thought about letting them go, but I don't know if he was afraid that Canelo was gonna counter attack him and get back at him. But this is a trend early on in the fight. Canelo looked very comfortable. He looked comfortable in the fight. He was using the jab. He was throwing combinations. He was doing a good job. Up to this point, early in the fight, I really thought it was going to be easy work for Canelo. So Canelo was doing a really great job in the beginning of the fight. I was quite surprised. I was really impressed. However, all of this changed in the middle rounds. GGG really started pressing the action. He started moving forward. He started going forward. You know, he was getting connected. He was taking a lot. He was taking some punishment, but he just kept going. He was relentless. You can finally see him attacking the body. And I was expecting more GGG to do this. I really wanted GGG to go to the body when he finally started throwing some combination. Not a lot, but he finally started going to the body. He was pushing Canelo against the ropes, and this proved to be really effective. And one thing that Canelo hates is being on the ropes. He's not effective fighting on the ropes like other fighters. Mayweather was always great fighting against the ropes. He was good. He was very defensive. He was able to still, tap the other boxers. But Canelo definitely not one of those fighters. Both of them were landing. I'm not taking anything away from Canelo. Both of them were landing. Canelo was doing a good job. However, GGG kept pressing the fight. He kept coming forward. He was frustrating Canelo. And when Canelo gets frustrated, he's unable to keep fighting. He's fighting. He's in there, of course, in the fight, but he stops thinking and he gets really frustrated. Canelo was using better head movement and going to the body. That's something that he never stopped doing, going to the body. And I really wish GGG and invested more going to the body. So there was a lot of action back and forth. Both of them had their moments in the middle rounds, but definitely GGG, just by using the jab and pressing the fight, he didn't let Canelo think. He was really, really making him feel uncomfortable, and he started to take some of these rounds. And this is when the tie started to turn in favor of GGG. Yes, in my opinion again, but I really enjoyed the middle rounds, and I really enjoyed GGG just pressing the fight. He was getting hit, but he kept coming and coming and coming. Now, in the later rounds, Canelo appears to be tired. He gassed out. And this is something that is a trend with Canelo. You know, he's a good starter. He fights well in the middle rounds, but sometimes he gets tired. He runs out of gas, so he needs to watch out his stamina and save some energy for the later rounds. GG seemed just more comfortable, and he kept pressing the fight from the middle rounds all the way to the later rounds. He kept pressing the fight. He kept coming forward and forward. He was getting some punishment, but he just kept coming. He was relentless. At this point in the later rounds, Canelo was really relying more on the power punches, which is something he was doing. GGG was throwing jabs in combination, and his jab was really effective. And if you remember, when Canelo lost against Mayweather, it was truly the jab that was frustrating him. So GGG was doing a great job, just frustrating Canelo and using the jab as a rangefinder, not letting Canelo think and throwing combinations. As I said earlier, GGG's jab was making the difference. He was truly, truly making the difference, and it's what made the difference this fight. You know, just kept bothering Canelo. They were not as strong jabs, but they just kept bothering Canelo. One thing that I like about Canelo, and I think this was really effective for him, he kept going to the body from the beginning of the round, middle rounds towards the end. He was going to the body, and I really enjoy when boxers go to the body. Canelo does a great job, and I really think this really bothered GGG. It really bothered GGG, and it make a huge difference in the fight. It took a lot of stamina and a lot of legs from GGG. Nevertheless, GG kept coming, and he was being more effective. In the final rounds, there was this little trend. If you ever watch the fight, Canelo came pressing the action early in the rounds. You know, he will be rested just from between rounds, and then he will come and really press the action, try to go in. However, you know, he will gas out the first minute, minute and a half max. He will have the energy, he will have the stamina, but then GGG was more consistent. You know, he was coming forward, he was pressing forward, applying a lot of pressure, and this is something that truly was bothering Canelo. At this point, once that Canelo ran out of stamina, he was throwing one punch at a time. You know, and this is something that he does now. He relies on just his power punches and his power, but at this point, towards the end in the final rounds, he was just throwing punch at a time. And GGG was capitalizing on this, being really effective and just kept pressing forward. He was not afraid to get hit to land a punch, which is something I truly enjoy. Canelo continued throwing to the body, and this was something that I feel was really effective for him. And Gigi didn't realize how damaging this was for him. I wish he had realized, and his coordinator had told him just to go to the body, put pressure to the body, you know, start putting better combinations. Both of them were trading at the end. I think Canelo landed the hardest punch throughout the fight, but GGG applied the pressure and he was throwing better combinations overall. This fight, as you recall, it was a draw. It could have gone either way. My opinion, I think GGG did enough to win this fight, and it should have gone to him. But he was the B side, and Canelo was the A side. So I think that had a significant weight on the judges. Overall, it was a great fight. It didn't disappoint. Both of them are great champions, and really looking forward for the third fight. I think it's gonna be a great fight, and definitely GG has the power to make a difference. So we'll see what happens.